Immediately following his resurrection, Jesus dictated a message to be sent to his closest followers, and John 20:17-18 tells its story. Considering the magnitude of the moment, its brevity is startling, but surely no other single sentence has ever communicated more. Its content, how it was addressed, and the choice of the one entrusted to deliver it all spoke volumes. The grief, confusion, and desperation experienced by Mary Magdalene following the death of her Savior and the disappearance of his body were relieved in the moment he appeared to her, tenderly called her name, and gave her an assignment. He commissioned her to bear this communiqué to his apprentices, which also meant she would be testifying to his resurrection. But she was literally the least likely person for the job. Sadly, in first century Israel, women were not considered reliable witnesses. And although Jesus had set her free from spiritual bondage, Mary would likely still have carried the stigma of having once been demon-possessed. So it's easy to see that there would have been a problem with her perceived credibility. In fact, Luke's account of this specifically notes she was not believed. But even though Jesus could have appeared to Peter and John instead when they'd been at the tomb just moments earlier and could have sent them to bear witness of his resurrection and convey his message, he chose not to. So we can only conclude he deliberately appointed Mary for this critical assignment, despite and perhaps even because of her gender and her past. Regardless, since we can all identify with the feeling of being unqualified for service to the Savior, this choice continues to communicate the Lord's willingness to use people just like us to bear his good news to the world. Until this point in his gospel, John quoted Jesus referring to his primary group of followers using three different terms that seem to indicate a progression from servants to disciples to friends. But here on the other side of the cross, the Lord addressed them using a word that takes that relational progression to another level. He made a point of instructing Mary to go to his brethren, a term John had used exclusively in relation to blood relatives prior to this. So the change is notable and makes clear that Jesus was highlighting the deeper relationship with himself now available to those men. It's simply breathtaking to hear him speak of them in that richly familial way and to realize that by doing so, he was saying the same thing about us. To all who are being sanctified by his amazing grace, both men and women, Hebrews 2:11 says, he is not ashamed to call them brethren. And if that weren't wonderful enough, because it's true, when Jesus told Mary to tell the disciples, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God, he was speaking to us too. And with those few words, he was outlining the entirely new paradigm his sacrifice and triumph has made possible for comprehending how we, once cut off by our sin, can be fully reconciled to our Creator. Through his incarnation, Jesus had so thoroughly identified with us that he could join us in addressing his Father as my God, and through his crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension, our Savior has made it possible for us to be so thoroughly identified with him that we can now join him in addressing God as our Father. No message has ever contained more glorious news, been addressed with a more ennobling salutation, or been conveyed by a more unexpected envoy. And in each of those aspects, it continues to speak to all who will listen.